Hi, I'm Max, and you're watching Progresses in Radical Mini, where we talk about trending topics and current events. Today, we're talking about the terror attacks done in Las Vegas and New Orleans. For those of you who don't know or want to be further filled in, reports have come out that both were former military. In Las Vegas specifically, what happened was that an individual rented a Cybertruck, and then they took that Cybertruck and had homemade explosives. They exploded right outside of a Trump hotel. Now, you might think that because they exploded outside of Trump's hotel, that they hated him or they had some problem with him. And in fact, they did have a problem with him, but they didn't hate him, so to say, because according to some reports from family and other sources, the individual who exploded his truck at the Trump hotel actually was a MAGA supporter. The reason behind the attack was because the individual was very upset that apparently Donald Trump was defending Elon Musk about the H-1B visa debate. As far as the second attack in New Orleans, that one was much more brutal and devastating because the individual also rented a truck. This time it was a regular truck, and they drove through a crowded street, hitting people and injuring them, and in some cases killing them. And then once they were stopped, they began shooting at others at the street as well. Now, in both cases, the aggressors are now deceased. In Las Vegas, the individual died to a self-inflicted gunshot, which he apparently did right before the explosion in his vehicle. And the one in New Orleans, the individual passed away after police gunned him down. Now, we are actually thankful that New Orleans attack wasn't worse, because in that case, they also had explosives in the vehicle. And if that went off, much more than 30 people would have been injured, and more than 14 people would have died. The cause of the second attack, the one in New Orleans, is supposedly related to ISIS. And we know that because the aggressor left a letter stating such. Now, there have been no reports of it actually being connected to ISIS, and ISIS itself hasn't taken claim of this terrorist attack, which means that the individual more than likely acted completely and utterly on their own. While both these attacks are horrific, it's interesting to note that the Republicans and Trump very quickly jumped into the fray and made false claims. They said that both attacks were related, which it doesn't appear that they are, and they claimed that the attack in New Orleans was committed by an immigrant, and most likely an illegal immigrant, according to their words. In both cases, that's false. They were both former military as well, which is why they had experience in making explosives. Now, I think the first attack, the one in Las Vegas, talked about here, is particularly interesting because quite frequently, when people talk about MAGA, they call it a cult. And I think it's interesting that this person was driven to such a place in his mind that he felt that he needed to give up his own life in order to make a statement about Donald Trump selling out the MAGA faithful. Now, we know that sooner or later, Donald Trump was going to sell them out anyway, particularly since he no longer needs them as he's been elected, and he needs Elon for his money. Instead of simply blaming the individuals, I think it's a time to be retrospective and take a look at exactly why this happened, what are the causes, and how was this allowed to happen. Guns were used in order to harm people, which means that they both had easy access to weapons. I'm not saying that complete gun control could have avoided these scenarios entirely, especially because these people did make bombs and use their vehicles as weapons. But at the very least, a couple of lives might have been saved if these people didn't have any access to guns. What we really need to talk about is PTSD and mental health care, particularly for veterans. Here in the United States, we completely overlook mental health care, and because of that, we have a severe shortage of therapists for mental health care. This problem, of course, extends to our veterans who, after their service has ended, we just simply throw them away to the side and let them fend for themselves. Veterans healthcare is severely underfunded, and mental health care, just like for the rest of the United States, isn't taken very seriously for military personnel, particularly for things like PTSD. Reports are coming out that at least one of them was diagnosed with PTSD, and I wouldn't be surprised if the other individual also had some sort of mental situation happening there. So while these attacks are horrific and they shouldn't happen in the first place, it is really important to understand that it may have been prevented if we simply took care of these people in the first place. I hope that we as a nation can take a look at these horrible incidences, and I hope that we learn something from them rather than just simply accounting it for two crazy people who did horrific things. And that we can actually learn something from this rather than simply trying to yell at each other and try to claim that this or that or could or couldn't have helped. I think that two clear issues of mental health care as well as gun control could have prevented some deaths, if not every single one of those deaths. And for that reason, I believe that simple mental health care and common sense gun regulation could have prevented some of those deaths, if not all of them. So, what do you think? Do you think we could have prevented this horrific incident from happening? Do you think that these two people were just simply acting out and were insane and that there's nothing we could do to stop them? Or maybe you believe that we could have prevented these things from happening in the first place? Regardless of what you think, whether you agree or disagree with me, please subscribe, like, and leave a comment below. And always remember, progress isn't radical.